Let's take a look at which new functionalities we get with the Supercharger update, aka the Rilma update, by building a Hillclimb car inspired by the monsters of the late 30s and early 40s. There are a lot of things that are new. This is currently the open alpha version. You can opt into that in Steam and try it out yourself. Today we're focusing on the new features in the car designer. There's more in the multiplayer section, and also there will be more in the future in the campaign. So let's head right into it. Let's start by slapping together the basics of the car without paying attention to the details yet. I just want to get the visual design done first. It's all pretty standard leather frame with independent front suspension and semi-trailing rear, so quite advanced independent rear suspension. It also has a 1.5 liter inline 6, which we will later supercharge. The first step, as always for me, is to select the right rims, and as usual for the era we go for knock-off wire wheels. Then I adjust the tire contours a little bit so that they more look like the tires back in the day, a little bit more balloony, less flat. It's the small details that matter to get a convincing overall picture. And I also remove the lettering on the sidewalls of the tires by reducing the contrast of the sidewall texture. Then it is time to start with the main grille. First I outline the contour with the seam mod. I do that because this body has a little bit problems cutting out holes, and I cannot just cut out with patches to get a nice outer edge. So here I use this seam mod and remove half of it by making it transparent, and by using two mirrored 90-degree parts I get a nice oval shape here. The next step is to remove the inner part of it by using a round cutout fixture and setting it to transparent. Then for two additional vents I use an actual vent. I don't need to use the technique with the seams here because the vent stays in its original shape a bit more, and I don't have to scale it up quite a lot, and the rim doesn't become very thick. So here it is totally right and easy to use the basic vent. I also add a small hole there for the starter crank, makes it look a lot more realistic from my point of view. And I insert some headlights. Why headlights? This looks like a Formula car. Yeah, I thought this is more of a Hillclimb car, which was run partially also on public roads, maybe in not ideal lighting conditions. So a little bit of lighting might be fine. It was just added afterwards inside these vents. I just thought it looked cool. I also added a small outline to each of these parts, which I could paint in steel afterwards, which would be the outer rim of the grille mesh. The grille mesh itself is built with every automation designer's best friend, the bumper bar, or the trim part. Basically scaled down, make it very thin slices of metal and clone it, try to place it in equal distances to form a nice pattern there. Moving on to the hood, it is time to place our side exhaust. We have a 6-cylinder engine, so 6 pipes it is. Here the pipes are placed in 3D mode, and the cutout is made from individual pieces, some square, some round, some triangular, to make it look nice and realistic and well aligned. Then I had to redo a little bit of the cutout because I planned to split the hood along the center line, and I wanted to make sure that it remains closed by attaching leather straps at the front and at the rear of the hood, so I make space for the attachment points. And then it's time to place the side vents. I use some slightly angled vents on the lower side to suck out the hot air around the exhausts, and also some smaller ones along the top. Always make sure to align them and to have them equally spaced. Some seams to separate the hood are next. And then I actually add the leather straps to hold the bonnet. I and some hinges so that the bonnet can really fold up towards the center. Then the cockpit work, a little basic windshield, the side mirrors, steering wheel, dashboard, the seat for the driver, and a gear lever and pedals. That's very basic, I know. All in 3D, all done with pre-built fixtures from very good interior mods. You can find the link to all of the mods that I have in the description below. And it's also about applying nice textures so that it looks a little bit used and fits the overall theme of the build. Moving towards the rear, we add the gas tank inlet, we add a little bit of an aero device in the rear. I think the way I mounted it, it's actually producing lift, but don't look too closely. And another set of rear wheels, like Auto Union did it for additional traction. And just some small tail lights in case we are running in rainy conditions to tell the one behind us not to crash into us. And then it's already time for the small details. It's time to rivet it all up, placing many rivets and a few more seams. Realistic body panel seams can actually add a lot to your design. Always think about where would seams go and try to align it with the lines of the overall body. Then one big pain point was the suspension. I had to paint the suspension transparently because the automation suspension just doesn't work for open wheel bodies, so I had to make the whole brake system and suspension from scratch in 3D. So first I placed several disc-shaped parts and make them look like brake drums, and then I built some basic double wishbone suspension in the front and a semi-trailing arm inspired suspension in the rear in 3D. I don't animate that all up for BeamNG, that's just too much work and probably will not look anywhere realistic, so just leave it as it is. But for at least for the automation part, it looks a lot better that way. That's pretty much what I wanted to do for the visual design. I also slapped on a custom texture here for the logo, a BAM badge. For those who are here longer, they know this brand. This might actually be the one for the next campaign playthrough. BAM is basically the Bayerische Automobilmanufaktur, so Gasmian style build at some point. Also added the logo here in the steering wheel. And then let's quickly go through all of the tabs and see what's new. As you might have seen, all of the car bodies have been reorganized, and we first have to pick a car and then select the wheelbase. So it's much easier now to go through all of the options and to find which body you really want. So I guess that's a huge plus, especially in campaign when you're trying to find a suitable car body. On the chassis side, I mean, we are now in a very early year. I set it to 1950, it doesn't really make a difference with the options that we are choosing. There's not too much new here. Maybe later in the game there's a little bit more. The most important thing here is the HD ladder, which is there for utility focus and also more safety. In case you aren't able to go for the monocoque yet, especially with the campaigns I do, very low money, very small factories, you cannot really afford monocoques very early, so HD ladder might be very good to get through the safety regulations. Then we have a little bit of a restructuring here. We can then select the actual body of the family that we have chosen. Then we have the paint tab, basically really much unchanged. And then we do the visual design as we have seen. And then we select the engine. So the workflow here is a little bit different. So far I'm still getting used to it. I guess it will be fine in the future. There's also one more new fixture placement mode, and that's for 3D distance placement mode. I've noticed now for these fixtures, for 3D fixtures, even in 3D mode, that they attach themselves to the body first, which helps a little bit with their original orientation. So this 3D distance placement mode basically places objects at a given distance that you can adjust here from the camera, it seems like. So you see the current plane where it would add those fixtures. So currently it's roughly about the distance of the wheels. If I now place one of these cubes here, should be, yeah, roughly at this distance. So it helps a little bit placing these individually, and later you can fine-tune where you want to place them. I first didn't really know how to use it. Now it's becoming a little bit more clear to me. I first thought maybe it's the distance between the car and the fixture, that you control this value here, but it didn't make sense. It would have been a little bit more easy for me to understand that. But I guess once you know how it's meant to work, then it's also easy to understand. That's the only thing I think that's new here. Then let's head into the engine. Basically, the news is that the sliders here have a higher range. You can build 75 liter V16s now. Then we have different material types, standard and performance types, allowing a higher RPM for the performance types, so that's helpful as well. But the most important thing, of course, is the superchargers. There's also been some reorganization here. I still need to find my way into that. But for the aspiration types, we now have superchargers from the very beginnings of the game. And actually, that's roots and centrifugal, which you can choose from the very beginning. I've played around a little bit and I found it extremely difficult to get roots superchargers to work on this engine, because it's quite small. We will still try it out again. I had better results with the centrifugal. Basically how they look like is like this. The roots is sitting here on top, driven by the belt, taking in the air from the carburetors here, feeding it into the intake. And the centrifugal basically looks like a turbo, just that it's driven by the belt and not by the exhaust gases. Yeah, it doesn't look as nice as the roots one, or as new, but still good one. Okay, so the roots. The initial one it placed was a little bit more, yeah, when you reselect it, then it picks automatically somewhat half of the capacity. If you want to really know how to tune these superchargers, take a look at Killrop's videos or the official automation videos. So basically what you should do is go into the foregraph mode and try to have your engine not run into any issues in the beginning. I can make my carbs maybe a little bit bigger, just so that we have a little bit more room to play. And then let's go quickly through the engine to see how it's built, and then add the supercharger. So here we have basically a very much detuned 1.5 liters inline 6 engine, semi-sporty, 7,500 RPM. Also a new thing, fuel is now on its own tab. Avgas, just because I think they would have used avgas for such a car. Racy stuff and exhaust is basically the same. And then we go into aspiration, add the supercharger. Let's try the roots again. Or let's first hold the engine so that we see the difference. And now we have the small root supercharger with a gear ratio of 2. And we see here that it's already exploding. So because of internal stress, I can reduce the stress by reducing the gear ratio. But still I cannot really get it to spool. So you see I've now made it smaller. I have even less power. And in order to make it go anywhere, okay, it didn't probably hold the engine. In order to make it go anywhere, I need to make the supercharger much bigger. And then I quickly run out of room here in the compressor map. The 0.6 bar are actually quite realistic. Those root superchargers didn't run insane amount of boost in the very early years. So I just pick a very, very high supercharger capacity here. But then it takes so much power to drive it that it's not more powerful than the naturally aspirated one. So yeah, basically the same. So I couldn't really get this one to work here. Maybe it works better on bigger engines, but let's try the centrifugal for this engine. And yeah, I think this one will be a little bit better. Just increase the boost limit so that it's running freely. I have a little bit of an intercooler here. And then we can just up the compressor size so that it spools, and also up the gear ratio. Maybe at some point this spinning thing also will go away. This is still an alpha, so issues are to be expected. Okay, I cleared the held engine. Okay, now I get something. Still it's producing no power, no torque, because it's not spooling, so we need probably a higher gear ratio. Now we get something. Maybe the 5 power boost limit is too high. I don't know if this should work this way, that you get less resistance if you have a lower boost limit, but let's go for something reasonable then. And just with these settings now unoptimized, I already get more power than I had before, so it's pretty good. Now I'm trying to stay within this chart here. I can increase the area I have to play with here with a more aggressive supercharger tune. I can extend the line by extending the gearing ratio, then just seeing where I end up. 175 horsepower, even more if I reduce the boost, and then we hit the top here at around 1.3 bar. Compared to a naturally aspirated engine, no power down low, a lot of power up there, so more than twice the power than the original engine had. Also still no issues there on the mechanical stress side, so I think this is a pretty decent tune. Can add more power down low with more gearing ratio. Yeah, let's leave it at this for now, and then retune the engine so that we use the flow nicely and also use enough compression until it turns slightly yellow up there. We run in a little bit of RPM stress. That's also something that's completely new. The whole reliability system has been reworked, and we can really see what the issue is for this engine. So for example, I use a mixture of iron block, aluminum head, which is really bad for the reliability there, but it's only a small portion for the bottom end or for the family. And all of these different weights, so the size of the box gives you the weight, goes into a total engine reliability. And in this case it's pretty bad, but it's also a racing car, so I don't care. A lot of things are coming from power, running into the power limit. Of course, now that we have added a massive centrifugal supercharger here. Okay, so let's continue tuning this. Didn't touch the intercooler, it's probably a little bit too large, but it shouldn't make a huge difference. You get a little bit more on top with a bigger one, but I think the size is alright. And then the manifold size, got a little bit of mid-range torque back, and the fuel system is currently pretty large. Yeah, get a little bit of power down low. So I have DCOEs now available in 1950 already with Tech Pool 5. Doesn't really matter. Could also build this with different carbs. Just use them for the looks. And then we can give this one a run. Nice and annoying. Very good. That's the engine basics basically done. We have nothing changed here on the gearing side. Still need to tune this one properly. So I wanted to be this Hillclimb car, so let's use pretty short overall gearing. And try not to have too much wheel spin down low. Maybe something like this. It has the intermediate tires on there, or this texture. I wanted to have this tread texture there. The secondary set of rear wheels is an extra 3D fixture. Just for those who don't know, there's a fixture type here in the 3D section, extra wheel, and you can match those to match the dimension of front or rear wheels. You just place it wherever you like. So it doesn't do much, it doesn't help the car performance, it just looks the way it does. For the color, actually, maybe this is something I found out. You can manipulate the color of aluminium to look a little bit worn. So you can make a new aluminium paint here, and with the dirtiness slider you will get this nice old school look here. And let's continue with our brakes. They are almost alright. Maybe for once I don't want to have this locking up all of the time, so I will make it a little bit too small. Still we have lots of brake fade. At least now it's not complaining anymore. And I don't want it to lock up in the rear. So this is not an optimal setup, but I will try to drive this later on in Beam and see how it goes. Okay, aerodynamics, nothing new here. Early years, that's where I play the most. I have something in the rear, so I will just add a little bit of downforce there. This is this part. One seat, basic, no entertainment. Could make it a little bit lighter. Rack and pinion, no safety. Basic suspension. Try to keep it with 0 rear camber so that it matches the other wheels nicely. Let me tune this one as well. I want to have a little bit more understeer in the end. Let's try this. So yeah, not very optimal for the automation side of things, very bad stats, but it does its job for what it wants to be. And then we're basically done. If you take a look here, 180 horsepower from 1.5 liter inline 6. I think that's pretty decent. And we can also let it run again on the test track. And this is also new. And if you have watched the automation update videos, you might have heard that I had something to do with this. Not only was this track here inspired by a old automation challenge I did many years ago, but actually the car simulation here was prototyped again and updated by me. We can now just drive the old layout of Manila with this car. It's the first time I'm actually trying this in the game now. I'm prototyping it in Game Maker. So let's see how it runs. It only got one wheel, no! Still a bit unpolished on the sound side, but basically it's working. And the car is now trying to stay on track on its own. By the controller it's no longer forced to the ideal line. And so far there haven't been many reports that something is completely wrong. And in the future the vehicle dynamic simulation will be further upgraded and we can do lots and lots of interesting things. Now it's a really steep part. I don't know if it should be that steep, to be honest, or if it's just the simulation that's bugging out. So we need to take a look into the elevation calculations again, I think. Yeah, but the rest looked pretty good, I think. Pretty happy with how this turned out. But for proper use in challenges I need to update a few more things about the vehicle dynamics calculations and make sure that everything is considered. Alright, and it will do another lap. It's just the best time indicator here is wonky. Okay. New test track basically working. Also very nice environment here. So good. What's also interesting here is reliability is also new for the car. Also very detailed now. That's the most important updates for the car designer part. And just to round this off, I will now head into BeamNG and see if this car actually works in BeamNG with the custom suspension that's not animated with extra wheel. So let's see how it goes. Alright, there we are in BeamNG. I had to get rid of the double rear wheels. Didn't just work out and broke the export. But other than that, it exported quite nicely. Especially the sound. Damn, it's so annoying. But yeah, looks quite nice. We are now in Italy and we'll try to do a quick hill climb. Alright. Ah. The exhaust smoke. Yeah, it's a bit shaky in the beginning. But once it gets going, it feels alright. It's oversteery. So the double set of rear wheels definitely would have been nice. Doesn't... Oh god. Oh no. I'm just driving with a gamepad right now. So that's the reason, of course, why I crashed. Let's try it again. A little bit more careful so it doesn't really like the bumps. Short shifting a bit for the beginning. And we should reach a nice road now. If I didn't break the car. I think it's more driving like a 1930s car, not like a 1950s. But that was also the design idea I had. Ah, yeah, a wheel would be better for this one, especially in these tight roads. Yeah, I think it's feels quite authentic to me. But the Supercharger whine is just... oh god. Yeah, quite nice car. I really enjoyed making it. It was pretty quick as well. But I also tried out different ideas at first, different car bodies, and then once I knew what I wanted to do, it was quite nice to build. Quite a good start into the year. Hope you enjoyed that one as well. And I hope you also will try out the Supercharger update. We will do a bit more with it in the near future. I want to do a multiplayer let's play Maybe you also want to join it. I haven't done a single game yet. We'll jump into that without knowing anything about it. So looking forward to that. And there's of course much more to come in the future when we get a campaign update. But for now, that's it. Thank you all for watching. And I hope to see you all again soon. Bye bye.